Hi, thank you, Councilmember Maple, for being here with us. My name is Volma Volcy with the Ring of Democracy. We are a nonprofit organization founded in 2016. Our main goal is to educate, engage, organize, and mobilize Black and Brown communities, and especially marginalized communities. Happy to have you here with us. We know you're running for re-election, so if you can take a quick minute or two to introduce yourself to the audience, let them know why you're running for re-election and why voters should vote for you.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you, Volma, for having me, and I'm always really impressed with the work that you do at the Ring of Democracy and just really engaging in communities. I know we've partnered on some events together, and so it's awesome that there are more opportunities to get to hear from all the candidates, because there's not a lot of places where that happens, so I really appreciate it. My name is Caity Maple. I'm a Sacramento City Council member. I represent the 5th District, so that's from Oak Park all the way down to Valley High. It's really big and long, and it's weird shaped because it runs along a part of the county that's called the Fruit Ridge Finger. So on one side of the street, you can be in the city of Sacramento, and the other side, you're in the county. So we work really closely with our county partners, our city partners, and everyone in between. A little bit of background about me. I worked in government in general. Well, I always say my first career was in restaurants. I worked as a waitress, a bartender, everything under the sun in restaurants for about 10 years. I started when I was 15 years old. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I put myself through school first at American River College, so really proud to be a local community college alumna, and then at UC Davis, where I studied psychology. And then in the very end of my senior year, I did a program called the UC Center, which we now host UC Center interns in my office, so it's very full circle. And that's where I first got my opportunity of working in and around government and public service. I then worked for the Chief Clerk's Office of the Assembly in the state capitol. And then I became an advocate on behalf of businesses, cannabis, and animal welfare, and I did that for several years. And then the pandemic hit. And I was on the board of my neighborhood association and just really involved in the community, and I was frustrated. I was looking around and seeing that the issues on the streets. I was seeing more homelessness. I was seeing people that didn't know what COVID-19 was in our encampments and didn't have access to care and vaccines and places to wash their hands. And so I did a campaign to raise money to put out hand washing stations all over the city. And it kind of blossomed from there. And then eventually I ran for office with that frustration in mind. And I thought I had some good ideas. And so I went and knocked on thousands and thousands of doors, and I was elected in 2022 to serve on the city council. And so now I'm running for re-election because it turns out if you had asked me 4 years ago, I would have told you 4 years is plenty of time to get everything done. But when you work in government, you realize that everything takes a lot longer than you thought it would. And you have to work with a lot of different partners to get things done. And so I still have a lot of work to do. I want to bring the library back to Oak Park. That's something I've been working on for several years now. We have to balance our budget. We need consistent leadership to do that. At this time, it's a big challenge. We need more affordable housing. I'm really proud of the housing that we have brought, but we need to do a lot more, and a bunch of other stuff that I'm already working on that I'm sure we'll get into in your questions, but really proud to be here today.
Yes, thank you so much. You've basically been in office for almost 4 years now, right?
Yes.
What are some of the things you've done that you'll say that you are really, really proud of that you were able to accomplish?
Yeah, okay. So one thing that I'm super proud of is it's called the Quick Build program. And so basically, we are one of the most unsafe cities in the United States of America for pedestrians and cyclists. So if you walk around or bike around our city, you probably know that. You have probably almost been hit by a car, or have had trouble crossing a street, or had somebody speeding next to you, or running a red light. And so that's really endemic culturally in Sacramento. And the ways that we have tasked our staff with fixing that are really expensive, and they take years. So millions and millions of dollars. It takes like 10 plus years to do these plans that we have for things like Broadway and Franklin Boulevard and these busy boulevards. And those are the right things to do because they add in protected bike lanes, they narrow down streets. It's great, but it takes way too long. And we can't wait that long because we have people dying at intersections and we know where it's happening. We have the data. And so what the Quick Build program does is it reallocated money that already was in the Public Works Department, about $6 million a year. We're hiring people to fill those positions right now, and it's putting out faster, more affordable interventions. So a great example of that is on MLK and Broadway in my district. In that one intersection, over the span of 2 years, we had 8 crashes, including 2 deaths in a senior housing center because people speed around the corner, they went too fast and they flew into the building. We knew that was a big problem, and so what we did was we used bollards to narrow down the lanes going into the turns. People had to slow down, and then it went around the corner and then opened it back up. It was really that simple. There hasn't been a single crash there since. It's been almost 4 years. And so that program is now doing those types of interventions all over the city of Sacramento. I think over 100 have been done to date, and so I'm really, really proud of that. The other thing I would bring up is just affordable housing in general. It's the thing that I hear the most from my constituents. As I heard it on the campaign trail the first time, I'm hearing it again on the campaign trail now. People are really concerned about their ability to stay in the housing that they live in, afford the housing that they want to find, especially seniors and young people, and the conditions of their housing, whether or not they can advocate to their landlord to make sure that their housing is up to code and provides them what they need. And so we have built some of the most affordable housing units in my district in the city. I'm really, really proud of that. I advocate on behalf of these projects all the time to get money for them, to make sure they get built, and sometimes to work with neighbors. Not every neighborhood really wants to say yes, but if you work with them and you educate them and you explain why it's important and the value that it brings, I can usually get people from I don't know to yes, and it's been a great benefit to the community, and so I want to see a lot more of those projects come to life. But also making sure that we have tenant protections, making sure that people have rights in the housing that they are in and they can stay in their housing.
Thank you for that. Maybe it's just me, but across all of the different city council offices, I would say you probably have the most diverse staff there. Like, is that something that was done intentionally, or it's just a byproduct of who you were just hiring?
I would say absolutely intentional, but also just hopefully I attract a lot of great people to me. But yeah, we have a great team, but we are intentional about it because I know that I have my one perspective, right? And I represent a very diverse community. It's about 40% Latino, it's 20% Black, 20% Asian Pacific Islander. And when you look at all those breakdowns, I realize that I'm not going to see everything. I'm not going to hear everything. I'm going to try my best. But I also need to have people around me that are connected and that understand those constituencies and can also communicate to those constituencies. And so it's been really important to us to make sure that we have people on staff that can speak Spanish, for example. It's been really important to us that we have people that come from the neighborhoods that we represent, not always, but in the cases where we can. And that's been huge because, I can't be everywhere all at once, and we have to have eyes and ears and everywhere in our communities to make sure that we're connected. And so I'm really proud, and we also have a lot of young people on my staff that I'm happy about too. Yes. I think that helps me see a lot more as I get older.
Older, I don't know what that means.
Even though I'm the youngest person on the council, which I am, I tell you all the time when I go speak to young people, I'm like, I shouldn't be. There should be someone younger than me because I can tell you, young people don't think I'm young. Older people think I'm young, but if you're in your 20s or teenagers, they think I'm old.
Yeah. So you mentioned housing just briefly, and as you know, housing costs has been just like rising over the past few years, and especially here in Sacramento, especially after the pandemic, right? What is some of your plans to increase the supplies of like affordable housing, and also while protecting residents from displacement?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, one, we have to continue to fight for all the affordable housing money that exists out there from the state and the federal government. We do a really good job of it, actually. So that's why you've seen a huge influx of affordable housing in the last few years. Things like the housing project off of 12th Avenue in downtown, right? Marisol Village. I was trying to find the name. 400 plus units that are built there that are all 100% affordable. Like, things like that do not happen in other communities. They happen here because we say yes and we want the money, but we have to fight for it. We also have really great leaders at the state level, like Senator Ashby and Assemblywoman Crowell, that are fighting for this money for us too. But locally, we have to get creative. So one of the statistics that I often think about, and this was also true, mapped onto my experience when I was younger as well, is the vast majority of people who qualify for affordable housing do not live in affordable housing. They live in market rate units, right? And that was me too. because there's not enough affordable housing units to go around. So people are trying to make do in units, and usually they're trying to find more affordable, what we call it naturally occurring affordable housing. So things like if you're in Midtown and you're in a unit that's, 50, 60, 70 years old and has been fixed up a little bit, but tends to be a little bit cheaper than a brand new unit, right? So we're looking at things like affordable by design is what they're called, working with developers to build maybe smaller units that are more dense in the Midtown, downtown area that can be built without all the bells and whistles, but are cheaper. They're $200,000 a door instead of $600,000 a door, and that means that they can pass on that cost savings to the consumer, to someone who's trying to rent this unit. And that's really marketing towards younger people who might be working, in the state capitol or city hall or wherever it may be. They want to live in Midtown, downtown, but they can't afford to live in like a high-rise, fancy apartment. So that's one part of the solution. We also need to make sure that the housing units that we do have, that it's getting older across the city, are being repaired. Because that's another piece of it. You want to live, we can provide those because they already exist at a more affordable rate, but they have to be in a living condition that people can actually live in. That's another piece of it. But we have to just overall build a whole lot more all over. We're never, ever, ever going to meet the scale of our housing crisis unless we have to be committed to building more. And that's another thing that I'm focused on, is removing barriers to building housing so that we're not saying no, we're saying yes. And that's been we've done a lot on that front in Sacramento.
Okay, awesome. My next question here is regarding the budget, right? Obviously, going to have a budget shortfall, right?
Yes.
And with a budget shortfall means like everyone has to make really tough decisions because you got to pay the bills, and you have to be able to do that. So where are you, as a city council member in your district, where are you seeing some of these cuts being made at, and then who pays for that? Yeah,
a really great question. So we have been in a budget deficit every year since I've been elected. So I often joke, but it's sad that I was handed this as I've come into office. But that's important. It's what we do as leaders, is step up. So we've had to make really hard choices every year, the last 4 years. But because we've made those hard choices, we've been able to stave off what would be a much, much bigger deficit now. The reason why we have to do that is we are required by law. We have to balance our budgets. We're not the federal government, which can spend and take on debt. We must, if we don't have enough at the end of the year, we got to find it somewhere else. We got to make cuts and so on. And so luckily, the last 3 years, we've been able to make do with one-time cuts, things like cutting vacancies, because one of the number one things that I came in with was I don't want anyone losing their job. Because guess what? The people who work at the city of Sacramento, they live in my district, right? They live in other districts in the city of Sacramento. They're constituents, they're neighbors, they're community members, and they have to feed their families too. And they're the ones who do the work, right? The city's budget, over 90% pays people, because it's the people who show up and they trim your trees and they pick up your trash cans and they make sure when you call 911 someone shows up, all that stuff. That's what the city does. And so it was really important to me that we keep that. And we've been able to do that. Now we're in a spot where we've made pretty much all the one-time cuts that we can make, and we have to figure out where else are we gonna make the cuts. My main focus has been equity, because right now one of the things on the chopping blocks that's being proposed by staff is community centers. Well, guess what? A community center in a more resourced neighborhood, let's say, might not, if that closes down a couple days a week, may not be that big of an impact, right? Those families may have other places for those children to go or those seniors to go. Whereas a cut to a community center in my community might mean like that's the only meal that person gets that day. It might mean that's the only place where that mom can take her kids and still work. It is like a lifeline for community members. Like Oak Park is the only community center in my district. Like that, like I heard loud and clear when I did a town hall recently, like this is cutting hours at the community center means like people's lives are at stake. So I'm really advocating in the budget as we make these discussions that we use our seed equity tool. It's a online database. You've used it, GIS, and it tracks on all these different data points, and it helps my colleagues and I and the city staff understand what do these decisions mean to the people that are going to be impacted. And I would argue that we need to make decisions that maybe make cuts in some other areas, but leave some other communities that really need it alone. So that's my main focus on the budget. The last thing I'll say on the budget, because I know we want to make sure we're moving along with the question, is people ask, well, how did we get into this mess? Is it because the city's spending out of control and, we're making willy-nilly decisions and going crazy? No. In reality, just like most people can understand, costs are going up. The cost of gas has gone up, cost of housing has gone up, the cost to buy everyday items at the grocery store or buy clothes, all of that has gone up. Your insurance costs have gone up. Most people can relate to that in their own lives. That's what the city is experiencing too. The cost of everything has gone up for the city, yet we rely on tax revenue. So our income is the same, like most people, their income is the same most of the time, and your expense has ballooned. That means you have to make cuts like your own budget at home. That's the situation that we're in right now. And I like to bring that example to people so that they can conceptualize what we're trying to grapple with as a city. But I'm also really hopeful because a lot of the data that projects out shows that we're in a hopeful, good place. We don't know what's going to happen with the federal administration, so things can change on a dime. But I'm really hopeful that we're looking at an upward trajectory in the next couple of years and hopefully won't be in the same position.
Okay, we talked about housing and we talked about the city having to balance its budget. When we talk about things like childcare, right? I mean, you got a little one on the way.
I do, yes.
That may be something you're gonna have to worry about at some
literally
point.
we just toured a daycare this morning, and I was like, that costs what?
So, as a father, and plenty of people who are supporting you or who will vote for you, they're parents themselves. The cost of childcare, to some extent, sometimes probably more than someone's rent, right? Depending on where you sending your child, and it's necessary because you need to work. But now, at times, childcare is just much more expensive than what some people are actually like getting paid, especially if you're working minimum wage. As a city council member, a mother, and a person who cares about our community, a community member, what are some of the things you, as a leader in our community, can do to address childcare costs and how it's pricing people out of the ability to even go to work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm thinking about this all the time now. Obviously, in my position, I'm about 5 months pregnant with our first child, and I'm starting to look around. And I'm very A-type, so I make a spreadsheet for everything. And so I did a spreadsheet of every child care center in Sacramento, and I called around and I got the prices, and I was really shocked at how expensive it is. And that's for full-time care, part-time care, whatever it may be. And so it's a big challenge. We've been in a childcare crisis in our city for many, many years. I actually want to give a lot of credit to Councilmember Eric Guerra, who has been working on this issue for many years. Before that, then Councilwoman Angela Gashby. And they pulled together groups, including all the childcare providers and the organizations. Eric also serves on First Five Commission, to address this problem about what we can do as a city. We can't solve it all ourselves, because if you look around, this is not a Sacramento, it's not a unique to Sacramento problem. It's happening all over. But one of the challenges that one of the issues that has been identified that I think we can really dive into is on the workforce side. What we're finding is it's really challenging to find people who want to go in to have their careers or their jobs be in child development and child care. And so not only is there an issue on getting enough people to come and actually do the jobs who want to do it, making sure that they're paid an adequate wage for the work that they're doing. And so working on the workforce side through SETA is one thing that the city's currently doing, ensuring that there is workforce training, that there are pathways that make sense for people to turn this into a career. That's what we should want to do. But guess what? It costs money. It costs money to pay people to do these jobs, and that gets passed on to the consumers, people who are going in and need the child care. So I'm also really interested, back to the power of unions, right? This is like where I think a lot of the labor side of things can come into play, where you're fighting for childcare subsidies, and that can be provided either through city, if that's your employer. The state is currently doing that as well. I know that a lot of state workers get subsidies to allow for childcare. And then last thing on this note is, I think this is also why we should be supporting remote work. Having flexibility for people to be able to make different choices about their childcare. So for example, if maybe you're able to work from home several days a week or half the time, and then you can make a more flexible schedule with your partner or whatever that may be, that gives parents so much of a relief. One of the things that I've heard the most about the concern from state workers coming back in with the return to office order is, what am I going to do now? You know, I've been able to, you know, care for my child and work for several years now, and now I have to go figure out how I'm going to pay $2,000 a month for childcare that I don't have.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Like, I don't think the city of Sacramento is going to come in and be able to figure out how to pay for everyone's childcare, but I think that we can partner, we can figure out the workforce side, and we can really provide more flexibility. Like in my office, for example, we have a hybrid working schedule because I recognize that my staff have lives too, and they need to be able to do those things, and I trust that they're getting their job done. And so I think that that is a big piece of the pie as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Council Member. As we are getting ready for a close here, want to say again, thank you. And if you can just take, you know, about 60 seconds just to kind of close out and just remind folks, you know, some of the work you've done, some of the work you're looking to do, and why they should continue to support you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. It's been a joy to serve the city of Sacramento and the residents of District 5 for the last 4 years, just about, and I'm hoping to do so for another 4 years. One of the things I'm so proud of is the investments that we've made, especially in infrastructure, so things like Little League fields, making sure that we have our traffic improvements, pedestrian safety improvements, affordable housing, and much more. But I believe that there's so much more work to be done. I mentioned this at the top, but one of the top things that I have been working on for the last several years is bringing a library back to Oak Park. It's something that used to be there in the 1980s. It went away. And I think it's really important that the community, especially young people, have access to literature as the chair of the Public Library Authority. And I also think that we need consistent leadership for the budget. We are definitely in a budget deficit. It's taken me about 4 years to make sure I know all the ins and outs and know where things are hidden and how to ask the right questions. And we really need that right now in particular to make sure that we can carry on and get out of the situation that we're in. And so I'm asking the voters to consider voting for me. They can find out more information at www.caitymaple.com. And make sure to vote by June 2nd.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caity. Thank you for being here.
Of course, happy to be here.